Good morning, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to discuss a little bit of a throwaway line I had in my last video. I may mention that I feel that the ban list in Commander needs to grow. Now, why would I say that? I believe that the format needs some new guardrails that don't currently exist thanks to Wizards of the Coast power creeping the ever-living hell out of this format over the last 3 to 4 years. And you might say, but Rule 0! And I would retort that Rule 0 has a major failing. When you're forced to play in groups that you don't know all the players, Rule 0 oftentimes does not help and can be uncomfortable to broach. This could be a group of people at an event like a Command Fest where you don't know everybody. It could be friends bringing someone to a game night that you don't know who they are. Is that person cool with a Rule 0 discussion? Do they even know about Rule 0? Or what if that player only has one deck? Do you Rule 0 them out of the game because they only brought a high-powered competitive EDH deck that outclasses the rest of the decks in the group? You may say that last one is a little far-fetched, but I actually know players that only own one deck. They dump all their money into that one deck just to make it better, and that way they can keep their costs under control, because let's face it, Magic the Gathering is not cheap and is getting more expensive as time goes on. Real world example, at my LGS, they hold Commander Pods every Friday night for their Friday Night Magic. Power levels there range from pre-cons all the way up to decks that are just a couple of notches below competitive EDH. And in this environment, there is no discussion of power level. You're just randomly paired up through the companion app and you play whatever you want as long as it's not on the ban list. If people in the pod are comfortable discussing power level, it might happen, but sometimes it doesn't matter because you may have only brought the one power level deck that's high enough, too high for everybody else, and you're just going to steamroll everybody else. If that kind of stuff is your earliest experience with Commander, how long are you going to stick around and try to play the game if you're getting smoked by stuff like Tooth and Nail, searching up things like the Kiki Jiki combo or the Mike Trike combo, and you just win out of nowhere? Another example I have just happened this weekend, played in my first paper event in over 2 years, played against a Crick Son of Yawgmoth deck playing my Xyrus the Writhing Storm deck. It was a fair game, it was a fun game, and then all of a sudden the guy went tutor happy and comboed out and won the game. He went and buried alive a bunch of stuff, reanimated a Necrotic Ooze, and he had a Chainer in the graveyard and a Gary in the graveyard, which was the other two things he buried alive. And he reanimated the Gary using the Chainer ability on the Necrotic Ooze by paying life into it through Crick Son of Yawgmoth, and just created an infinite loop of Garying the rest of the table to death. Not a lot of fun. I've seen players give up on that kind of stuff, getting rolled by a combo, and I've noticed that over the last 7 years of actively playing Commander, I'm guilty of allowing my decks to creep up in power, and they can also do stupid, degenerate things. So what do I think should be done about it? I personally can decide to dilute my deck, but then I'm simply leaving myself open to those who don't share the idea that they need to tone their deck down and kind of curb themselves. And it's a failure of the self-policing nature of Rule 0. You're always going to have people who are like, I don't care, I'm going to play whatever I want, win at all costs, and they're going to build the strongest deck they can without reaching competitive levels of stupid if they really want to, and if they really just want to blow everybody up, they'll dump as much money as they can into that deck. So my idea is twofold. First off, split the ban list into 2 lists, one for competitive EDH and one for a lesser powered, I don't know what you want to call it, probably casual EDH. That kind of has a negative connotation, so name is subject to whatever you want to call it. This is basically just to show I'm not a heartless bastard. I don't like competitive EDH. This format was not intended to be a competitive format, so I kind of have a little bit of a disdain for competitive levels. Instead of just blowing it up outright, I would split the list, and then your playgroup or LGS can decide which set of bans they want to use. For competitive EDH, keep the list as it is right now. That's it. That's the list for them. Have fun melting your guys' faces off on turns 1 through 3 like you already do right now, if that's what floats your boat. For the newly created casual list, I would expand the list greatly. That way you can kind of tone the power level down. Now, bans are not fun. Bans affect people's wallets. I understand that. But this format needs something to keep it from spiraling out of control, because right now it's looking like the Wild West out there. So what would I add to this list? I'm not going to be picky choosy as all get out. One thing that I would just hammer into the ground are tutor effects for anything except for lands. If it looks in your deck for anything but a land, ban the hell out of it. Why do I hate tutor effects like this? Simply put, they are what I believe to be the top reason why power levels on EDH decks are out of control at times, because as new cards are printed into the format, and you're able to tutor for them, you get these new combos that come up that they're not tested for, and they get wildly out of control. And it just makes for a very unfun experience. So, I gave some examples earlier of, Tooth and Nail going to get the Kiki Jiki combo with Village Bellringer. I can't tell you how many times I've died to that mess. Or heaven forbid they have a way of tutoring up an extra turn spell that allows them to go infinite, and then you just get to sit there and watch them play solitaire for the rest of the game. That's not fun. That's not magic to me. And to be perfectly honest, it is fucking infuriating when that kind of shit happens. Now, I didn't get mad when that guy comboed me out the other day. I was still having fun because it was my first event in forever, but I didn't really appreciate how we were having a fun, fair game, and then out of nowhere, it just was, it's done. It's like, oh, that's kind of crappy. Now, that said, I don't care if you run those combo pieces in your decks, but you should have to draw into them naturally as the game progresses, whether you draw them off the top, one at a time, extra draws off of things like Howling Mines, or you just play more card draw in your freaking deck and get your stuff, but it should happen naturally over time. Newer players experiencing these kind of whacked out combos is not good for the longevity of the game. And if that's one of your first experiences, they're not going to stick around and the format's not going to grow. And sorry, I do not trust in the nature of other human beings. This imaginary social contract built into Rule Zero, trying to keep the power level from overwhelming people, I have no trust in it. With a split list, you let the competitive crowd go bare knuckle boxing while everybody else gets a shield to kind of enjoy the game how they want to play it without depending on the goodwill or the lack thereof by your opponents while sitting there playing a game of Commander, which in the end will engender newer players to start at a lower level, and then once they get comfortable with the game, then they may want to graduate up to playing competitive EDH with the higher level cards. So what do you think? Am I completely batshit crazy? Or do you agree with me that Commander needs some better guardrails to keep it growing and keep new players interested in the game? I would love to hear your thoughts and comments below. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching and have a great day.